Hi, I'm Shannon Gallagher, and I'm a Latina. Um, I have an American father and a Venezuelan mother, and this video actually required research that I probably should have done sooner now that I think about it, but I talked to my mother about her story and why she ended up in Florida, of all places, and she told me that she grew up understanding that Americans had an entirely different culture than Hispanics. That she was sold that American dream through television, through marketing. She was sold all of that. So she came to America, and she was actually supposed to go to Arizona. And the person that she was going to live with bailed on her and said, "Hey, don't bother coming because it's not going to happen." Actually, didn't even bother telling her. Her sister had to tell her last minute. So my mom was in Florida, waiting for the connecting flight, waiting to buy the ticket, and and all of a sudden everything changed. She had just a suitcase. She was with her mom, who I love so dearly, um, and everything shifted. Thankfully, like by some lucky stars, my grandmother's friend had a friend who had a friend who lived in Miami, and took my mother in. Um, Treated her like her own daughter. To this day, still the best of friends. And my mother lived with her for a couple months. Decided she wanted to get her own place. Um, she got it. She had one fork, one spoon, one knife, one pot, one pan, and a workout bench as a dining table. And that's it for her one bedroom, one bathroom studio apartment. And a couple months later, my mother cleaned houses for a living for a little while. She said everybody loved her. She made friends with families. She, at one point, even vacationed back to Venezuela and took one of the women whose house she cleaned with her because she loved her so much. And so my mother basically established herself on her own. She took classes at the local school. I don't know which one it was, but she took an English course. She has a marketing degree from Venezuela that she thankfully could utilize and grow. But she basically grew from nothing and moved to an all new country, not knowing the language, not knowing the culture really, and she just took a leap of faith and decided she didn't want to live in Venezuela anymore. This is what she chose, and she stuck to it. And hearing her story, which again I should have heard a long time ago, really opened my eyes as to how strong she is as a woman, and as a Latina. Like millions of people do this kind of thing all the time in hopes of finding a better circumstance to live in, and my mom was one of them. She did it. She did it. Um, Now my dad is all American. He was Floridian, born and raised, loves fishing, loves sports, everything. You name it. It fits the stereotype. He's a stereotypical American. And I love my dad dearly. They met in a restaurant, and the rest is history. But that's pretty much my story. For a long time, I did reject my culture, or at least half of it, because I grew up without it being cool to be anything other than American. All the kids played sports. All the kids had cheeseburgers. All the kids ate the same thing, did the same thing. It just didn't feel right having a different background. So I rejected it for a little while, and looking back on it, I completely regret it, just because my culture is who I am now, and it's who I will be for the rest of my life, and it's who I was for forever. Rejecting it was just like rejecting a part of myself, and that wasn't fair to my culture, to my family, and I wasn't doing myself any favors. Thankfully, I realized that sooner rather than later, and I embrace it with open arms, and that essentially is why it's imperative that people vote, especially Latinos, because there's so much going against us. There's so much discrimination, just like pretty much any other minority, to be honest. But I don't know. I just think Hispanics are underrated and they're discriminated against and stereotyped, and there's just way too much for us not to feel the drive to vote. There's so many things that we could improve on. Marginalization is a big issue that needs more attention, and we need to elect the people that will bring that attention to the surface and look at it with bigger eyes. So even though I'm not fond of the choices, there are other things to vote on as well in this election, and I just think that it's part of, I don't know, I don't even know how to eloquently put it. It's just, it's important, it's imperative, it's our lives at stake, it's our well-being, it's our social construct, it's everything goes into politics. So if we don't, we're really setting ourselves up to continue to be discriminated against and to continue to be seen as lesser in every sense of the word. I vote because of my mother, and I vote because of my father. I vote because of my parents. They've raised me to look at things analytically, and politics is something that requires a lot of analytical thinking. And so that's just me, though. Thanks for listening.